Hello everyone, let's talk about the 8 books that I read in spring. So this video is going to be a little bit more chatty. I'm going to try not to edit it too much. But basically I didn't manage to read that much in spring because I had so much work going on top of uni stuff, and yeah, I just didn't get that much time to read. But let's talk about what I did read. So I've got a little list on my phone, as I always do. So let's take a little look. So in March I only read 2 books. First was on my Kindle and it was Making a Play by Abby Glines, which was the 5th book in the Field Party series. It's literally the definition of trash. It's not that good, but it's very entertaining. I mean, this book I did have problems with because it had the cheating trope, but it was like completely, we're just going straight in apparently, it was just completely like, it wasn't for the author to make a statement or a point, or for there to be this battle of forgiveness or anything like that. She cheated on her boyfriend and then they became best friends instead, and they broke up and they became best friends, and I was like, what? I'm not really sure I can't get behind it. I can't deal with it. I don't like it. Yeah, other than that, I mean, it was very insta-lovey, which I really also don't like because it's very kind of like inauthentic. Sorry, I just need to look at my ratings. It's just very inauthentic. So I rated this 2.5 stars, which means it was average. There are parts about the book I find entertaining. I mean, it can be a quick read. What I do find about these trashy books in this series is that they are really good escapism, because it's just like something wild is always happening. You don't really know what to expect. It's like, you know, it can take you by surprise. It's quite fun. And also it's written so colloquially that it's just very easy to follow along. It's almost like a friend is talking to you, kind of. At least it felt that way when I listened to the audiobook with the final book, but we'll get to that. Okay, so next I read Verity by Colleen Hoover, and god, what do I even say about this? It was a wild ride. It was insane. Oh, by the way, let me explain what Making a Play was about. So Making a Play was, so the whole series is following, each book follows a boy from the football team in Lawton, Alabama, and their love story basically, and the final book is then like all their perspectives 5 years later. But this book was about Riker and Aurora. Riker is cousins with another boy on the football team, Nash, and Aurora moves to town. She's deaf. Riker is like instantly, oh my god, I don't want to be a fuckboy anymore. I will literally give up my life for this girl. I will learn sign language for her. I don't even know her. I will just literally do everything for this girl. I will disobey her dad. I don't care. Like, fair enough, disobey her dad, because like her dad was a bit of a like prick and he was racist, so like bye to him. But it was just like he was instantly willing to give up everything for this girl, and like it was literally because of the colour of her hair and like the colour of her eyes. He was just so taken with her, and I was like, boy, get a grip. Get a grip. It was weird. At least they had more dates than Nash and Tallulah though, because they only had 1 date in the frickin' book. Anyway, back to Verity. The thing about Verity is, see, I just don't know how to feel about Colleen Hoover. I rated it 3 stars because I liked it, and it did, you know, it was enjoyable because it was like, whoa, all the time. Like, I felt disturbed by a lot of things, which I feel like is effective when you read a book. You know, I want to be like, what on earth just happened? Like, this had some of the most fucked up things I've ever read about. It was just insane. Like, where does that come from? However, I find that one of the problems that I have with Colleen's writing is that she never fully really develops her characters most of the time, apart from in All Your Perfects. That is the exception. All Your Perfects is my favourite of hers. It's 3.5 stars for me, which means I really liked it. It was just, you know, characters fully developed. I actually felt like things were like a real proper, like, fully fleshed book. This is just, I don't know, like, I hated the romance. I did not root for them at all. I didn't really feel chemistry because, like, where the hell did it come from? It just clearly was like to fulfill, you know, a need of her audience, which is obviously they read her books for romance, so she included that. In my opinion, the story would have worked better without the romance because it just kind of took away from the main plot. Yeah, I do think the kind of topic of Verity's very twisted like mindset towards motherhood and her daughters was really interesting to kind of like explore. So yeah, I did like it, but like it's nothing special to me, and in retrospect I like it less, but yeah, that's that. Okay, so then moving into April, is that correct? Well, I know it's correct, but like, okay, so, oh, hang on. So April, we have Tuck Everlasting, I don't speak like that, Tuck Everlasting by Natalie Babbitt. So I rated this 3 stars as well. So, okay, this book is basically about a young girl who meets a immortal family and they like whisk her away on an adventure and she grows to love them and all that kind of like stuff. It's a really cute middle grade children's book. However, I would say that it's for probably the younger scale of like middle grade, but it is extremely like well known. There's a movie of it with Alexis Bledel, which is very exciting. I definitely want to watch it. A couple of things that are a little bit weird is the romance between, well, it's not like a fully fleshed romance by any means, but it's just kind of like hinted at several times between a 10-year-old and a 17-year-old. There is this kind of like, you know, wait until you're my age type of thing, which is cool. I appreciate that, but I mean, it was just a bit like, you know, I wanted there to be a romance. I didn't realise that she was literally going to be 10, and I didn't realise he was going to be older than her. So yeah, I kind of wanted the whimsy of that romance, but I didn't feel anything because there's nothing to swoon over because they're, you know, completely different, inappropriate age gap. Anyway though, it was a really sweet book. I liked how whimsical it was. I love the idea of like drinking from a stream and becoming immortal. I just find that really charming. The book is charming in itself, like the writing style and like actually what happens in like the setting, but I do think it was just too young for me, and I think I would have loved this as a story if, because I liked it as a middle grade, but I think I would have loved it if it was like an young adult or an adult book. So yeah. Okay, moving swiftly onward. Okay, so this one is, I have a lot to say about it. Okay, so this is Lie With Me by Philippe Besson. I read this in Lanzarote and it was one of the best things I've ever experienced, like literally one of the best things literature has given me. This is no doubt a 5-star. Yeah, I mean, this book has genuinely touched me more than any book ever has. It affected me in deeper ways than any book ever has. It's the most beautifully sad, painful book that I have ever read, and it's one of those things where I literally have so much to say about it that I don't even have words, because it's just like, it's so weird because I feel my emotions like aren't coming through. Like I can feel that, I can feel like my emotions aren't coming through. But genuinely, I was reading my highlights of this the other day and there are so many, more than any book I've ever read, and it's only 148 pages, and as I was reading them I was just crying all over again, and it made me cry so hard the first time I read it as well. The last sentence killed me, like actually killed me. I mean, this book ripped my heart from my chest. I would love to make a whole video dedicated to it, honestly. I have just never felt so closely impacted by a book. I related to it so much. Obviously, okay, so it's about a gay love affair in the 1980s in France. It's about our main protagonist, Philippe, who has this painful crush on Thomas, who is this aloof popular boy in his school. And then one day Thomas approaches Philippe and he's like, can you meet me for lunch? And then they end up starting like a forbidden romance. It's, well, it's not, well, it's like forbidden by society, it's a secret, they keep it a secret, they don't tell anybody. And it's just about the kind of like tragic romance between Philippe and Thomas that is doomed literally from the very start. I mean, it's just like there's nothing like it, and the fact that it's mostly autobiographical, that's the impression that I get. This book is essentially a tribute to Thomas, Philippe Besson's real, you know, first love. And it's just incredible. I mean, I don't want to say too much because there's so many spoilers that I could give. All I really have to say is, if you like sad books, then read this, because I genuinely think it will impact you in such a deep way. And I mean, this book it literally has its very own place secured in my heart. I adore it. It is literally a part of me. So yeah, I recommend this very highly. I love this book with literally all my heart. Okay, next book is The Cheat Sheet by Sarah Adams. So this book was so good. It's about these friends. Nathan is this rich quarterback in the NFL, and Bree is a kind of like ballerina with like broken dreams because she broke her leg, I think, something like that. So yeah, it's a friends to lovers, which I love. It has a couple of my favourite tropes in it. It has One of Us is Famous, which I really like, because I love that whole like, I'm not good enough for you, yes you are, you're way more than good enough for me, like type of vibe. And then I also really like Friends to Lovers because I think it's just such a like wholesome trope. What else? It's got Fake Dating, which like I'm not the hugest fan of. I wouldn't like pick up a book because it's fake dating, but I do like it, I think, if it's done right, because it's like there's room for tension. But then I also do find that with fake dating, the trope in books, there's so much room for miscommunication, which does annoy me because it makes me think, okay, it's so obviously a book, whereas I really like to be immersed in a story. I really like to feel like I'm a part of it, or just that it's happening in front of me. Whereas this, I'm like, okay, I'm kind of turning pages right now because it you know, it can get to a point where it feels too deliberate. However, I do think that basically the first 3/4 of this book I was like, oh my god, it is a 4-star, which is very rare for me, you know, it's rare. Which means I loved it, you know, because I loved it at first. There was so much chemistry, I was swooning so hard. The chemistry was literally like insane. It was very constant as well, so like it was just very, there was just a lot because they were already best friends, so it's like, you know, you don't have to go on those first dates or whatever, they're already comfortable with each other, they already see each other all the time, you get all the scenes with them all the time. It was great. But in the last quarter, for whatever reason, I felt like the writing style kind of fell off a little bit and she just kind of lost her mojo. I mean, maybe I kind of just imagined that or interpreted it that way, but that's just the experience that I had with it. And I found it towards the end got a bit more like cringy and cliche, and I just don't really like cliches that much, and I don't know, it just kind of makes me think, like, I thought that this was like going to be an exception to my not really liking romances or rom-coms. It's so weird because I read rom-coms and I read romances because if I'm in a slump or I need something quick and easy, they'll be my go-to and they flow, and you know, it's good escapism. It's so easy to just get stuck into them. You don't really have to take a lot of brain power. However, I do find that, you know, books that are romances or rom-coms, they're so predictable. I like dark romance, or not dark as in like mafia, but I mean like when they're tragic or you know, there's something deeper going on, or it's like literary fiction with romance in it, like, because you know, like Beach Read. I think Beach Read is marketed as a romance. I haven't even read it, but it's also like large, is it like, I don't know, some people say it's like literary fiction because it has so many more like deeper life topics in it. And then also Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is literary fiction as far as I'm aware, but it has a very heavy subplot of romance, like it has a very heavy plot of romance, but I love that. That's a 5-star for me. And obviously Live With Me is tragic, and I do have one of my 5-star books is a romance. It's called My Life Next Door by Huntley Fitzpatrick, but it is it's summery and it's quite wholesome in a lot of ways, but then it does have its kind of, it's not like extremely dark or extremely sad, but like a little bit dark, a little bit sad, little things that crop up. Either way, that's an exception really, because I really like that one, really love that one. At least, you know, I mean, I read it so long ago. But anyway, this I thought was going to be an exception. I was like, oh my god, have I finally found a rom-com that I actually love, because this would be the only one. But no, it's a 3.5, which means I really liked it, because I did, but it just, you know, proved my ever-standing kind of belief that I don't really like rom-coms or romances. But yeah. Okay, let's go into May. So I read Game Changer, which is the 6th book in the Field Party series by Abby Glines. I rated this 3 stars. It is Asa and, oh, what's her name? Esmita's love story. So I liked this one quite substantially because it was a little bit more realistic. It was actually very much more realistic, because it wasn't, I mean, it wasn't really insta love. I mean, it was a little bit. One of them, Esmita had had a crush on Asa for a really long time. Asa, he didn't like fall in love with her on the spot, and he was very much in denial because of like trauma and stuff. But he was immediately captivated by her. But then there was a much deeper, like almost like believable reason for that. She witnessed him in his most vulnerable moment of his life, so he kind of just developed this almost like bit of an attachment to her because of that. But I liked it because it wasn't this like happy-go-lucky insta love, like we're gonna be together forever sort of thing, like from the get-go. It was like very much built up, very much like kind of up and down, but like not in too much of an annoying way. It just felt quite realistic, to be honest. And I liked it, and I kind of like respected it for that reason. So yeah, I mean, again, it's trash, and there were certain things where I was like, literally, you're such a fuckboy, like stop talking like that, stop thinking like that, get a new brain. But yeah. Anyway, let's go on to the last Field Party, which was the final book in the series. I listened to this on audiobook, and it was a really nice experience because I felt like a friend was talking to me, as I said earlier. And also, we got to revisit Maggie and West, which was nice, but, you know, they did feel a little bit different, and it wasn't the same as before. Like in the first book, I loved that book. It was a 4-star. Until Friday Night, the first book of the series, Maggie and West. I love them so much. And I still do, they're like precious to me. But this book was a 2.5 because it was just like this massive epilogue, but literally everyone was getting engaged. So it would like switch between each couple's, like part 1 this couple, part 2 this couple, whatever, going through all these couples, and like each time they would like get engaged, and I was like, hun, do you not think that I'm predicting it by now? Like, do you, like, you know, yeah, okay, cool, but how realistic is it that this whole friend group are gonna get engaged that closely to each other? And like, I don't know, like, give one of them an engagement, give one of them a baby, but like don't go overboard, you know? I just felt like it was too much, way too much, and I was just like, no, I am not feeling it. And it was just very like, there wasn't that much depth, because it was like obviously split into so many parts of all the 6 couples, and so it was just quite summarisy and like not that fully like fleshed out for like everyone, what? Like, for, like, you know, to really get a sense of everybody's story, it was just kind of like, oh, this person got engaged, and I was like, congrats for the 17th time. So yes. And then the final book, okay, we have The Shadows We Know by Heart by Jennifer Park. So this is so weird. It's about a girl who lives in like South America, and right outside her house is this woods, and for years she's been sneaking into the woods and leaving apples for the Bigfoot. And then this one day she goes there and she leaves apples, and then in amongst the Bigfoot she sees a boy, and she's like, oh my god, a boy. And she's like taken aback by him because he's like this beautiful forest boy, and she's like completely entranced. Anyway, they start this romance. But like, how do I feel about this book? I don't know. I rated it 3 stars, which means I liked it. But I do have my qualms with the book. So first of all, I liked the writing style because it was very easy to follow, but it was like a bit deeper. So it was kind of like a deep YA, which I really like. I like those books. And I felt like it dealt with grief in an interesting way, because there were so many differences between the different characters' ways of dealing with grief. So it was interesting to kind of like see that from a psychological perspective. But yeah, I'm not going to give anything away, but there were some really interesting things that ended up happening with the boy in the woods, and I liked the fact that like I didn't know where it was going. And then when I found out, I was like quite happy that that was the way that it went. However, there were some times where I did think it was like potentially a little bit too weird, but then that's probably only because I don't care about Bigfoot. Like if it was something else, like, you know, if it's vampires, it's like the same thing, different species, whatever. But then to be fair, they're not human, so, but vampires are like human, or at least they were human. So I mean, when they're vampires, I can do that, I can get behind that, and I can like really enjoy that. Like, I mean, Twilight is literally my life. But this was just like, I don't know, I think it's just because I wasn't really interested in the Bigfoot. But yeah, I mean, to be fair, if the book didn't have Bigfoot in it, I'd probably like it better. Like, imagine this girl goes into a wood and she meets this mysterious forest boy, and then they start a romance, and she like goes into the woods in secret and goes to see him. I would like that a lot more than the Bigfoot, to be quite honest, because every time she kind of had an interaction with the Bigfoot, I was like, this is just weird, like I don't really like it. But then I get that this is some people would like the weirdness of it, but I don't know. I like weird books, I like quirky books, I do, but I feel like I just wasn't interested in the Bigfoot. It is what it is, you know. But yeah, it had quite in-depth explorations of like familial relationships, which I really appreciated as well. But yeah, it was a good book. 3 stars, I liked it. I'd recommend if you like YA and if you like Bigfoot. But anyway, that's it from me. So that was my spring reading wrap up. Sorry I missed a couple of months, I was very busy, and I didn't read enough books, so I figured I'd compile it into a seasonal wrap up. But yeah, back to monthly wrap ups now, so I'll see you at the end of this month, at the beginning of next month for my June wrap up. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you've been reading lately in the comments, and I'll see you soon. Bye!